Donkey and Ogre are going to teach us something about Newton's third law. And here I have my sketch of a donkey and an ogre, and I've labeled them because it's not always been super clear to everyone seeing this picture that those really are supposed to be a donkey and an ogre. So the donkey says, if I pull on this cart, by Newton's third law, there will be an equal and opposite force, which will cancel my force. And why is donkey saying this? I think he's trying to argue that donkeys can't pull carts. Obviously, the ogre is maybe, in donkey's mind, being cruel and forcing him to pull this cart here, and donkey maybe doesn't want to do that. So anyways, he's trying to argue that based on physics. And it sounds reasonable. If two forces are equal and opposite, they should cancel, and then there'd be no net effect. But what's possibly wrong with that argument? Well, let's take a look at it, right? Because if here's a free body diagram for the cart, and there's going to be gravity, there's going to be normal force, there's donkey's pull, right? That he claims there's supposed to be an equal and opposite force that's going to cancel that pull. But the thing of it is where is that equal and opposite force? If we look at the FBD for donkey, he's got gravity, he's got normal force, and there's the pull of the cart back on him. That is that equal and opposite force predicted by Newton's third law. The key thing with Newton's third law is the equal and opposite forces are always on different objects. So if you make the argument that they're going to cancel out, it never works, because forces can only cancel out if they're on the same object. And that's what, in both these cases, that's what the gravity and the normal forces are doing. But the two forces here that are a force pair do not do that. Now, I think the FBD, I stopped to talk here, but I don't think that FBD was complete yet, because if you ask, like, well, how is it that a donkey could pull this cart? Well, if they have a traction force, if they push with their, if the donkey pushes with his hooves onto the ground here, the ground will respond by Newton's third law. And that's, since Newton's third law makes this possible, right? That the ground responds by applying a traction to the donkey. And in that sense, the net force on the donkey can be in the left direction if that traction force is large enough to overcome the cart's pull. Maybe another perspective we could take on this is to look at the whole system together. Actually, I jumped the gun a bit there, because the perspective the ogre is taking is like, come on, just pull the dang cart. We all know it's going to work. But the perspective I wanted to take is to say, what if I looked at both the donkey and the cart together? It turns out at a very deep level, the way Newton's third law is stated and the way that it works is what allows us to do that. In that sense, like, why is it we can choose to do an FBD on a donkey and a cart as opposed to like maybe just the wheels or the axle of the cart, or maybe just, part of donkey and not all of him? And if we're allowed to make that choice at a whim, we can also choose to look at the FBD for a combined system. And Newton's third law should say that things should work out. And here's how it might look. There'd be the combined weight, the combined normal force, and the traction force. Why would there not be those two force pairs? And I think, anyway, there's going to be acceleration, but why might there not be those two other forces that we'd identified in the previous diagrams? And I think, let's see, I think Ogre's going to tell us something about that, because he says donkey's force and its opposite force do cancel, but it's the traction force that accelerates the system as a whole. So from the perspective of this bigger system, these two forces that were predicted by Newton's third law that donkey was trying to argue with, they do in fact cancel from that perspective. They are internal forces. But from that perspective, again, it's the traction force that actually accelerates the system. So donkey is wrong again for a kind of different reason.